going. Good morning. Hope you enjoyed last night. I did. Today we are going to do all our best, not only me, but you also, trying to learn something about how to do our best to deploy Zentyal servers. All what I'm going to share today, it's based on our experience giving support to our customers, and this kind of very small but very handy tips we learned during all the support process given to all our customers. So, we all know that Linux is difficult, well, not for the very geek and for the freaks, but for many people Linux is difficult. But what we try to do with Zentyal is make it easy. But still, we have this kind of small things that we have to polish to deploy a perfect Zentyal server and working perfectly. So, support. Being a system administrator is hard life. We are lazy, but we also have a lot of experience, and we apply this experience to our deployments. This is what we call Zentyal support. If you want to do it, you can hire us, and we will do it for you. Why you should be getting Zentyal support? Because you want to deploy Zentyal like a professional, like we do. So I will start giving random tips on how to get the best practices deploying Zentyal server. First thing that we have to do when we are thinking about deploying Zentyal server, it's to think how it's going to be the network. We have network, and we are going to deploy different services. And it's not the same thing if we are going to deploy an Office server with file sharing, printer sharing, or if we are going to deploy a gateway, UTM, firewall, whatever. If we are going to deploy a firewall, gateway to the internet, it's going to be in between our LAN, our network, and the internet. So we will be just in between. But if we are going to deploy a Samba server, a file server, it's going to be inside on the LAN. So it's going to be different servers. So don't try to mix Samba with Squid, because it doesn't make any sense. And probably it's going to work not very good. Like imagine your users uploading or downloading files from the file server, and the proxy, it's going to be more slow. It's going to slow down as the users are using the file server. So please don't deploy different roles into one server. At least not roles that they are not compatible. Okay. This is something that actually we were dealing with it last week in support. We had a customer that he downloaded Zentyal installer, and he was saying, "Oh, this is failing. I tried twice, I tried 3 times, and it's always failing in the same point. What's wrong? How could you release a wrong installer?" No, we didn't. You have a faulty download. You download an installer, and by some reason it was corrupt. So please, this is the most stupid things, and every time you download a Linux distribution, they say, "Oh, check MD5, this geeky thing with the command line." Who cares about this? Yeah, you should do it, because it's going to fail at some point. Probably you are going to download 100 times a Linux distribution, and 99 times it will work flawlessly, but one time it will fail. So hopefully it's not this time that you have to restart very quickly your server. Okay, so please check the hash. Partitioning. This was a very polemic thing, because some time ago, Zentyal installer had an automatic partitioning. We used to keep /home separated in a different partition, because some file sharing was the most typical rule. Right now, everything is on the same partition, but we are still using LVM. What I want to explain with this. Depending on what are you going to use your server for, you should be doing a different partition. If you're going to use Zentyal as a file server, probably you want to keep /home as all the files in Samba, they are going to be stored there in a different partition. Why? If these files, they are going to grow, keep it separated. You can apply different policies, backup policies, different flags for the file system. Keep things separated. It's like you don't have the kitchen and bathroom in the same room, okay, at home. So this is the same thing with a server. You have files, static files that never change in one partition. You could even mount that as read-only, never going to write over there. And the files that you are usually working with, keep them in the partition, probably with no flags. Flags, this is also very important. Probably when you're installing Zentyal, you see like NOAA time, real time. What does it mean? File system, root file system never changes, so default flags, they are okay. But partitions that they have user data that's changing all the time, it's very, very harmful, very common to give them real time or NOAA time flags. As per file system performance, it's doing better. So this is another thing that you have to remember. Silent IPD repositories. If you're using Zentyal installer, this is done automatically out of the box. But if you are installing Zentyal on top of an existing Ubuntu server, when you are the IPD repository from our PPA from Launchpad, and then you are trying to install Zentyal, APT is going to fail because it's not going to recognize the GPT signature. So to make sure that the packages that you are installing, they are really coming from our repository and they are released by us and nobody else, make sure you install into the system key ring our GPT key. So nobody's doing like man-in-the-middle attacks on the repository. You are not installing fake Zentyal packages, but the real ones. Automatic queue updates. Kike was telling about this just 5 minutes ago. The funny thing, in computers and IT we said, if it's working, don't touch it. But the other side is, what happens with security updates? What happens if there is a security issue with my system? Should I update the system? Should I stay like I am? That's what we created, queue updates. We are taking updates from the community, doing full QA process as Kike explained. Do this on your Zentyal server. And another thing, don't perform security updates during office hours. Many people, they have automatic QA updates installed, they do by midday. What's wrong with you? Your users, they are going to be working with the system, do this midnight onwards. So when everybody is sleeping, well, at least 3 onwards. DNS server. Many people, they wonder, why should I install a local DNS server for caching? This is a very common thing. If you're running, probably the most typical scenario is you're running a proxy, HTTP proxy, and you know that when you're running an HTTP proxy DNS request, you're doing that on the client side, but as you have transparent proxy, your Zentyal server is doing again this DNS request. So put a local DNS server in Zentyal, so you're not doing or you're not carrying the internet, the DNS servers on the internet every time you're making an HTTP request, every time you're loading a web site. Keep this cache on Zentyal and you will speed up things a lot. It's like only a few milliseconds, but you know, like every item on a website, you multiply that for these few milliseconds and probably you will be speeding up load times like between 1 second and 1 second and a half. So I think it's worth it. DHCP. What is useful DHCP? For auto-configuring your network, but not only for that. We all know that it's very handy to move your laptop from one place to the other one. Just plug in the network wire and it works. Yes. For DHCP, it's very, very useful for other things. DNS, But NTP, we will talk about NTP later, but you can auto-configure NTP in your clients out of the box using the DHCP. Wins for doing Windows resolving, name resolving, and PXE, like booting from network, different devices like VoIP phones, time clients, all these kind of things. So DHCP not only for configuring IP address, but all the things. Gateway, one failover. This can be a bit tricky. In one failover, you can configure different tests. One failover is very useful to detect when your network is failing. How can you detect, or how can you say that your network is failing? Probably you can do a ping to your router, but maybe that's not enough because your router could be alive, but your internet connection could be failing. So you can do further tests, like doing a ping to a computer on the internet, do a DNS carry on the internet, and the most complete test is doing HTTP request on the internet. But we have different parameters here. We can define the time between tests. We can define how many tests we want to do for each gateway, and what is the failure rate for each gateway. And there is some maths here. You don't need a calculator, but you have to think about this. If our test, it takes like, I don't know, 20 seconds, don't do the test in between less than 20 seconds because you're going to overlap the test. So you have to think how many probes you're going to do for each gateway. If you have two different gateways, you have to measure how many tests you're going for each gateway. If you're doing like 6 tests and 6 probes and you have a failure rate of 20%, and you have to measure how what is the timeout for each test. 5 seconds for HTTP request, for example, you have to multiply 5 seconds for 2, that it's the maximum failure rate for each gateway, plus all the gateways. So you have to do like some small ones, multiply number of gateways, failure rate, plus timeout, and don't do the test more often like this. Traffic shaping. Traffic shaping is also a bit tricky. The interface is very nice, you can configure different rules, but many people, actually Mateo could say this. Where is Mateo?
Here.
Good. People, sorry, I didn't see you. Listen, how should I shape my internet connection? Well, shaping, it's also a bit tricky because downloading, it's the most often case, but uploading is the most easy one. Because when you're sending traffic to the internet, you can say, okay, keep it easy, slow down. I'm not sending traffic as fast as I work. But when I'm receiving traffic from the internet, I cannot say, hey, over there, slow down. This is not working for TCP/IP. When you receive the package, when you receive the traffic, it's already on the side. So I cannot say, oh, I'm sorry, but I wanted this traffic to come more slow. This is something that's not working for TCP. So uploading, you have to do it on external interfaces, like the face to the internet. And downloading, you can do it on the internal interface. Why? Because the trick for doing downloading shaping is dropping packages. When on the internal interface, when I'm sending from Zentyal back to the LAN traffic, I can say, I'm not going to send these packages. I have already them in Zentyal, in the buffers, but I'm not going to send them as fast as they are coming from the internet, but I'm going to slow down. This way, the ACK packets sending back to the internet, to the original sender, they are not sent that fast. So the window, TCP window from the sender, it's getting smaller, and the traffic, the speed from the original sender, it's getting reduced as well. So this is the trick part for doing shaping. If you have any doubt, if something is not clear, just stop me and ask me to explain a bit further. Yeah.
I think I'm not that interested in traffic shaping. I'm more interested in quality assuring, quality of service. And well, then you come into a slightly different area, I think. If you, for example, need to provide voice over IP. And another problem with quality of service, I think, is overbooking of your internet connection.
Yeah, this is a problem. And actually, this is granting some bandwidth for traffic. You can do this on upload, but you cannot grant on download, because when you're sending traffic to the internet, you can say, okay, I keep this bandwidth for this protocol, and I'm completely sure that I'm going to grant this bandwidth for this protocol. But when I'm receiving traffic, I cannot say, oh, well, this is already here, but I want to keep this space for other traffic also coming to the internet, from the internet. So you can guarantee some bandwidth when you're uploading, but you cannot guarantee traffic when doing downloading. So the guarantee fill on traffic shaping on download is completely useless, because it's going to be already here. So you cannot guarantee that. Okay. More ways of doing traffic shaping. On last release, we introduced a new feature, which is delay pools, and this is not in the traffic shaping module, but it's in the HTTP proxy. If you're using a transparent HTTP proxy, you can use delay pools. This is not about swimming, not swimming slowly, but it's about having all this guys that you are downloading movies from Megaupload, and I don't know, probably in other countries it's not that common, but in Spain we love movies. And probably Settings Youngest, I don't know if you know this website. It's, I don't know, the best English class in Spain. But we want to share our English teacher between all the people. So when you're downloading TV shows, or all of you are of course downloading Zentyal installer, because I know you are downloading that every day. You should deploy delay pools. What does or how it works, delay pools? What it does, when I'm browsing a website, usually website, it's composed of a lot of small files. These files, they are download as fast as you can from the internet. But as soon as some HTTP proxy script detects that I'm downloading a big file, it slows down this download to a slower traffic connection. So regular web browsing is going fast, but if I'm downloading a big file, it's going slow. So I don't use the whole internet connection for downloading a big file, and the other people cannot work with that. And the last bit of traffic shaping, probably Ricardo who's here watching, he knows all of this. When we are detecting traffic on application level, not at the protocol, not at the port level, but when we are trying to identify a connection using the application level, like doing pattern matching on application level, how's the protocol working inside. This is not 100% sure matching. Sometimes it fails. Probably you're trying to match Skype, or you're trying to match a torrent download, but actually what is this connection? It's a connection to Gmail. So when you're trying to slow down P2P connections, or Skype or YP, whatever kind of connection you're trying to slow down, don't put it like, don't try to slow down to 1 bit per second, because if you have false positives, those connections, they are going to fail, they are going to time out. So just give it a small bandwidth to all these connections you want to slow down in your network, but still give some bandwidth, so in the case you have false positives, they can still work. Okay. Blocking websites. Probably the forum moderators here, they know that this is a very common question on the forums. How can I block Facebook? Or how can I block 20 for Spanish people? Jaime? Jaime is working for the DNS social network, right? We have 3 different ways of blocking any kind of websites on Zentyal or in any other firewall proxy when connecting to the internet. First one, and probably most obvious, is when you are using a transparent proxy. You go to the filtering profile and you say, okay, I want to block this website or this domain or this website category. And this is working fine, but only for HTTP, not for other protocols. What other people they do? The second way of blocking websites is if my clients, the users, they are typing on the browser facebook.com, I'm going to resolve that name into my local host address, so it doesn't go to nowhere. It goes to nowhere. So if I point facebook.com to 127.0.0.0.1, it won't go anywhere on the internet. But they still could install themselves a local DNS resolver and access to websites. So the definitely way to block websites is to detect the IP address of these websites and then block them on the firewall. This is definitely way of blocking websites. How to do this? Because you would ask yourselves, Facebook has a lot of different IP addresses. There is a trick for doing this. You ping or you resolve facebook.com, you will get an IP address. And then using whois, you do a whois into this IP address, and you will get the full network range or subnet assigned to this company. You know that when you're when you put a server on the internet, you get different IP addresses for ICANN or for the organization dealing with IP addresses for you, and you can get the range of the subnet assigned to you. So you get a subnet assigned to Facebook, to 20, to your favorite sport newspaper, and you create a network object with this, and then you block this on firewall. This way, you are almost 100% sure that if Facebook, if 20, if Marca.com, they change the IP address, probably they will be changing to another IP address that you already have in the pool. So, still my firewall rule will be valid. Web server. This is also a very common question. When you're using Samba, when you're using file sharing, uploading files to Zentyal, it's working very nice. Probably I don't want to share my files in my personal folder with other people. But if I install web server, I want to share a public HTML folder into the network. So Apache needs to read my personal folder. So very easy thing, change permissions, allow everybody to read this folder. Otherwise it's going to fail when you access like this symbol and this name. Actually, what's the name in English for tilde? Tilde? Yeah. Okay. In Spanish we call it corruño or something like that. NTP. I was talking about this when we exposed DHCP at the beginning. I don't care if my server is 2 seconds delayed or 3 seconds delayed or even a few minutes delayed. We are Spanish people, we are always late. Actually, I have my mobile 20 minutes in advance, so I'm not that late. But when dealing with computers, we have to have all our servers exactly on time. Because, for example, imagine yourselves, you get, you have your users browsing the internet, and then you have a report like this. Someone like, I don't know, like, for for some legal reasons you want to check out what was this user doing at midday, exactly midday. You go to your server and you have to check out like a lot of hundreds of Linux logs. But also, if you are deploying master and slave and you have this replication working, replication is not going to work if clocks on the servers they have different times. Or if you have a VPN server and you are doing the SSL negotiation between the client and the server, SSL negotiation isn't going to work neither. And there are quite a few things that they are going to work. But in the next release, when we have single sign-on, this is going to be completely compulsory. If your cloud is delayed more than 3 minutes, single sign-on is not going to work for you. So it's up to you. If you want to work more, don't install NTP. But if you want to have everything working smoothly, just double-click NTP module, automatically enable, and that's it. And you forget. ldap. Probably this would be the second most common question in the forums. My master slave isn't working, it's buggy, it's failing for me. No, come on, we have deployed a lot of master slave scenarios, it's working. Probably there's something wrong in your network. I agree, could be more user-friendly or administrator-friendly in this case. But it's working. But first of all, why we should do what we should deploy master-slave architecture in our network. We have different services, so actually this was the first slide. I have different services in different servers. I want to share this users and groups between all the servers and in master slave. But also you have other reasons. High availability. If you have one LDAP master server and you have a slave LDAP server, if the connection between both servers it breaks, it's going to work anyway. This is a very common scenario. You have LDAP master server in your facilities, and then, for example, you have mail server on the internet. Users and groups, they are synchronizing. If your internet connection fails, is your mail server on the internet stop working? That would be a fail. So what we do, we have high availability. If connection between master and slave doesn't work, still the slave is going to keep working. And low latency. As we keep a local copy of the LDAP tree on the same server, latency is going to be very big. Imagine yourself, every time postfix, every time any diamond on the slave want to do any kind of user operation, he has to carry LDAP master. That will be very, very slow. So, two reasons: high availability, low latency. Performance. It's when you have between 1 user and 100 users on LDAP, it's going to work fine for you. But when you have a lot of users, there are two things that you can do. First thing, size limit. Size limit, this is another very common error or bug in Zentyal. Let's say, when I have a lot of users, LDAP search or any kind of LDAP operations failing. No, this is a default configuration. If you have a lot of users, you have to increase the maximum maximum limit for any LDAP curl. So every time you are carrying LDAP, it gives you by default a maximum of 500 items. If you have more things on your LDAP tree, you have to increase this. And indexes for performance. If you are doing a lot of operations in your LDAP tree, you have to create indexes. You know this, any kind of database needs indexes to index. But, sorry, I didn't prepare any slide for this. 3 tricks to deploy an LDAP architecture. First, master has to resolve the slave name. This isn't documentation. I'm not telling here anything new, but I'm going to repeat this because people forget. Master has to resolve LDAP name. Master has to be able to reach SLAP slave SOAP port, a slave Zentyal web interface, and a slave must be able to reach master ldap port. So 3 things, very easy, but don't forget. If something is failing in your ldap deployment, it's one of these 3 things. So please check them out, and then if it is still failing, report about, because there is a bug there. Events. Probably this is the most funny thing I like to talk in about Zentyal. Events, it's a very flexible module, and you can do amazing things. If you have an HTTP proxy, you probably will be blocking porn websites. Yes, maybe not, but you will be probably blocking porn websites. And every time any module on Zentyal does an event, blocking, accessing a website, whatever, it creates an event. And with this event, you can do any kind of action. And for example, you could be dispatching this event using Java connection. So imagine yourself, you're system administrator, you're working like very lazy, drinking your Coke in your table, and you have your users saying, haha, I'm a bit lazy today, I'm going to watch how was football yesterday, or going to see some kinky websites on the internet. But you're a very smart system administrator, you're doing your job and you block these websites. And this user is going to be get a denied access on this website. And probably he said, oh, damn it, I couldn't access it. But you could go further. You could ask, you are configuring events. You could raise an event on this blocking action and dispatch this action using instant messaging. And with your instant messaging client, you could get a new message saying, user Mihai wasn't working, but was watching football. Let's say football, okay? So you can stand up, go to Mihai's desk and say, what are you doing? And you don't need to be paying attention at Mihai's monitor. You can be doing your own stuff.
That's a web that's doing my thing.
So you can do this kind of very funny things with events. Usually, if we are getting serious here, you can use events to not get notification if it's working or not. Okay. And talking about backups, do backups. Everywhere on the internet is saying do backups. If your server is going to fail, probably it will have backups. Please do backups. We can do 2 different kinds of backups. We can do configuration backups, and we can also do user data backups. If with the basic subscriptions, we get out-of-the-box configuration backups. If we want to go one step further, we will need Zentyal disaster recovery services for backing up data on the internet. And the very interesting thing of Zentyal disaster recovery, I talked about this before, is not about making backups, because all the system administrators tell to their boss, I'm doing backups. Oh, well done, guy. But can you restore these backups? Did you try? Because when you're going to need to restore these backups, you need that working 5 minutes ago. So try. And if you are not able, or you don't know, you don't have knowledge, or you don't have the time, get Zentyal disaster recovery that is going to do it for you. Okay, pay little money, and you will get everything out of the box. But Zentyal basic subscription, which is free, keeps using all the things. And this is Zentyal.me subdomain. What is this useful? To share music and all kind of files with your friends with using web server module, but also for connecting home using VPN service, all kind of things. Zentyal.me is working out of the box with your basic subscriptions, useful for almost everything. Any kind of service you are exposing to the internet, it's very useful. And one thing that we have with Zentyal.me dynamic DNS, if you go to noip.org, dynamicdns.org, you get only one IP address dynamic domain. But if you have 2 or more internet connections, you will get mygateway.yourname.zentyal.me. So you can do all kind of load balancing, accessing exactly this gateway. It's one feature for it. Okay. So if you have different gateways, use Zentyal.me domain, and you get more features than most common dynamic DNS services. If you have your own domain, you can create a CNAME subdomain pointing to this address, and you will get your own domain here. Samba. In Samba, you can configure your domain settings, you can create shares, but you will notice that there are still 2 more tabs in this menu window. One of those is recycle file. All the users, they are used to work with a recycle bin. What happens if I delete one file on the server? It's gone. So please enable a recycle bin, and please enable antivirus. If there is a virus, probably you won't Zentyal block that. Mail. You have 2 different options when deploying mail. You can use classic mail server with the open code, or you can deploy a full groupware solution using Cloud. When you're deploying a mail server, use a full qualified domain name for your server. Otherwise, if there is a problem delivering one email, the remote server won't be able to return back the email error. So please use whatever Zentyal, whatever your funny name you choose for your server, that's your domain. And of course, you want to get notified of all these errors, so use a postmaster address. This is configured on Zentyal interface. Get email notifications, email progress notifications. I'm not going to get into details with customization because Carlos, we will talk about this later. But use custom stubs. I am fed up. I'm bored seeing in the forums. If you want to change something on your Zentyal configuration, edit /user/share/evox or Zentyal/stubs, whatever stub it's going there. Don't do that, because when you are going to upgrade, this is going to be overwritten. Use /Zentyal/stubs to do all kind of modifications. There is a very nice blog post of hosts talking about this. If you change something and you want to find out what did you change, use the sums. It is a very package on Zentyal, on Ubuntu. It notifies you of every change you made on the system, and you want to figure out because you forgot. I told you before, system administrators, we are lazy and we forget things. There's some, it's like your mom remembering to do their tasks. I don't have more time for telling you more tricks. If you want to add anything, do it now, or you can do it later. I hope you enjoyed. Any questions? 3 questions? We talk about a lot of things, a lot of stuff.
Jorge, when you change to Samba 4,
Yeah.
will you then need to have ldap, and what will happen to master and slave configuration?
We don't know already. We are still integrating Samba 4. Samba 4 has its own ldap 3 inside. We still have to figure out how we are going to keep synchronization between main Zentyal ldap server or ldap 3 and Samba 4 own ldap 3. We don't know it. I don't know.
You can say in ldap part 3 conditions. First, the master has to resolve the name of the slave.
Yeah, using /etc/host or DNS.
Yeah. The second one is the slave has to connect in the port of the master. Yeah.
The slave has to be able to connect to ldap port to the master, right?
The third
Third one is master has to be able to connect the slave Zentyal port. 443 by default, you can change that. The master has to be able to connect to the slave HTTPS Zentyal web interface. This
443
is
for default.
yeah. If you change, could be different. This is just for doing SOAP operations. Every time you do any kind of users or group operation, master makes a call to the slave to perform all these kind of operations you need to do when you create or what you delete, what you modify this, like rewrite and any kind of configuration, whatever.
How come you're choosing the ldap port in the slave?
Say it again, please.
You see, ldap ports are for ldap usage.
Yeah.
How come the synchronizations from the masters don't go to the slave on the ldap port?
It does. It does, but we need to do something else that is doing this operation.
Okay.
So it's not only about synchronizing LDAP, but
It's other things.
performing other actions, like for example, creating the home folder,
I understand.
changing some permissions. Yeah, every module has a method to perform different operations when you create it. I think we are running up.
One other question. You moved quickly through the slide. You were saying if you're using classic mail, you have to use a proper domain name.
Yeah.
The second line under that was what? That if you're using...
This?
Yes.
When you are deploying a mail server and you want to send, you are sending an email to a remote server. Imagine that this account on the remote server, and when the mail is being sent, you are going to get a bounce error. This error needs to come back to my mail server. If I'm using a not qualified domain name, the remote server doesn't know how to come back to me.
Your previous slide, I think it was.
Come back to you, and your server needs to know how to notify the system administrator managing this server. So you need to set up.
Yeah, it goes further with a fully qualified domain. There are a lot of servers now in the world that will not accept your email if they can do reverse lookup. And
Yes,
That's
when it
right.
comes to PDF records as well.
Yeah.
Most of the mail servers will require you to have a...
Actually, Zentyal does. If you're trying to send an email from whatever without domain, Zentyal will refuse to deliver this email. Follow us on Facebook. Oh, one last
We
one.
exist both the
Web access?
web access for the mail with an older solution and older Zaragoza one. Why coexist these two ones?
Why they can coexist?
Yeah.
Because right now Alpha can be used for one domain, but you could be still having double code for accepting or for delivering mail to other domains. So we could make them incompatible, but we could make compatible. So it was easy. So we said, okay, maybe it doesn't make sense in most of the scenarios, but you can have both working. So follow us on Facebook, Twitter, the picture from the